my name's Nick Vaughn. I do currently work with Life Care. This is a little mutually exclusive. I'm going to talk about the private side, some consulting I've done in the past and whatnot. I got a loose presentation. I don't normally super follow them, but as Lisa mentioned, it's some like must-knows, some things that I picked up working for different entrepreneurs, private companies, and common trends that I've noticed, what helps people succeed, what I see is the biggest benefactors for organizations. So one of the things I guess basically you'll start off with is what I've learned. And the fun part about presentations is they don't always work, but this one is working for me. So what to know to succeed? The biggest thing is to learn from others. And I'm going to kind of touch on this a little bit later. But networking, like you guys are doing now, going to conferences, seeing trends, looking outside your state, even watch your competitors. What do they do? What works best? Is there something you could pick up from them? Why are the competitors? Why are these people in other states successful? And don't just necessarily look inside your state or your specific competitors. Is there a similar industry or opposite industry? When I started off my career, I was working in the chemical and nuclear science field. So I was on the management side, and we worked with a lot of reverse engineering where someone would give us a product and we'd have to give the molecular makeup or what polymers were involved in it, those types of things. In that industry, we also had to do a lot of audits. So ISO audits. If you're in the manufacturing field, you're probably familiar with this. We also work with nuclear facilities. And there were very specific codes that you had to follow in order to meet the guidelines, become certified, and be able to give these types of okays, if you will, that these products are safe around the various parts of the nuclear plants. Through that audit, I learned some best practices, some trend things. So I was on the management marketing side of that company. But I volunteered to help out with the audit process. And by doing that, I got to know my coworkers a little bit better, but I also got to see some standard operating procedures, some of the failures within materials and or companies and what led to them. Because sometimes there's a problem with the product. If you trace it back, it could be a machine or it could be a personnel issue. It could be a training issue. So fast forward, if I'm doing some kind of consulting with an organization that sells, basketball hoops, you can notice some similarities. I might be helping them build a website. However, when learning about the organization, they can say, well, here's what separates us from the competitors, but here's also what our weaknesses are. And just even that alone, I was able to go back, all right, so this is your weakness. You're having this type of failure. When I worked for another organization, here's what happened. So even though I was helping them just develop a website, I was able to kind of assist them in another way too. So learning from others is always a good plus. The good thing about the consulting that I will do is it gave me a chance, going back to 2009, to dabble in other fields. I have 4 different degrees. I have a business and management marketing degree. I have an arts degree, a career and technical degree, and there's computer science degree. I just can't believe I'm forgetting what my own degrees are. It's one of those days. So I like to dabble in a little bit of different things. When you're doing consulting, when you're working for different organizations, you start to learn, wow, this is kind of cool, or this isn't what as flashy or whatnot as I thought it would be. But you also get to meet a lot of different people. One of my first bosses told me, he says, you're starting off your career, every single person you'll meet here, you'll meet for the rest of your life. And that was true. You notice a trend in personalities, someone who's maybe comes off as kind of gruff, but actually really cares, or someone who will be willing to work the extra hours or whatnot. And identifying those people and noticing those people, that helps you build a team. And building that team is one of the important things that I'm going to talk about in a few as well. But then you start building that gut instinct once you meet people, or once you're working with clients, whatever it might be. So when I was doing that, there was low overhead for me. I could work out of my home. I could build a website by myself, so I was able to, not have a lot of operating cost. And some business cards, travel, that might be the extent of it. And putting my own money out there until I got paid back. I mean, that was the extent for the most part of the risk. So that was a good part about testing it out and seeing if that was like my thing. So I've stuck with that. I still do the consulting. I still work with a lot of different organizations. And when you're talking with an organization, they'll say, well, this isn't really your field. This isn't really your specialty, or whatever it might be. And my response is yes, but this is a problem that you're having. Here's what we've done in different fields. Here's what we've done in different industries. Here's how you could fix it. Here's something that you could possibly think about that's completely outside the norm. And maybe this problem is being caused because you're sticking with the norm. Keep having the same problem over and over again, whether it be an issue within your management, you bring in a new supervisor, new director, whatever it might be. Maybe that's not necessarily the answer. Maybe you have to do something completely unorthodox, or bring someone in completely from a separate field to get that thing to work. All right, dancing back. So everybody here is entrepreneurs, right? Everybody's starting their own business. When you start your own business, you pretty much have to know every single aspect. So me telling you that you need to know IT, that you need to know HR, that you need to know operations is kind of a moot point. The reason why I bring this up, though, is if you are familiar with IT, and if you are building your company from maybe just you or maybe in a couple people to something much larger, that technology, that employment manual, all those things are going to grow with you. And when it gets to the point to when you have to actually hire a specific HR person or a specific IT person, you're going to know what qualities to look for in that person. If you keep having issues where you don't have enough bandwidth for the devices that you're using, then you're going to have to find someone with a strong networking background. If that person leaves suddenly, if they don't give you 2 weeks notice, or if you're going to hire additional staff, you are going to build around your strengths and or weaknesses as you look for those employees. If you know your specific IT items, then it's going to help you, one, if they leave suddenly, and two, if you need to troubleshoot or be a backup, or if there's a catastrophe, you can jump in and get your hands dirty. Same way with HR. I worked with SHRM, did a presentation for them recently as well. And if I have time, I'll even bring it up for you. And even though I'm in the different type of management positions, I wanted to network with as many HR people as I could, because HR is a really important world. If you do the wrong thing, you could upset your insurance company, you could upset your employers, you could do violate some kind of crazy law that you may not even know about. You could leave your phone on and not put it on vibrate, like this. But unfortunately, I got to keep this with me in case there is an emergency. But you hire based off of fit. And that fit is a very important part. I'm going to talk about corporate culture in a second too. And once you learn those personalities, once you know those people, if there's not that specific fit within your organization, there's going to be headbutting, which is sometimes good. It's not a bad thing, but there's also going to be a lack of buy-in. And if an employee doesn't buy into your company, then they're not going to care as much, or you're going to get poor work quality. and all the things that kind of come along with it. And the ability to adapt is huge. I guess it's just human nature. Some people absolutely positively hate change. And it comes from like the employee side, it comes from the company side, and even if your organization has grown, even if you're the one who makes it kind of grow, when you get stagnant, when you can't seem to figure out how to overcome the hurdles that you've been able to in the past, or there's new ones, whatever the issue might be, how are you going to adapt to that change? Most of the organizations that I've helped, change is usually brought by bringing in an outsider. And that could be consulting, that could be someone completely from a different organization. And maybe 3/4 of the time that works. Other times it does sometimes make you take a step backwards. But when you take that step backwards too, it helps you reevaluate. Either way, whichever direction you go, it makes you kind of reevaluate where you're at, why you're there, and maybe give you a clarity. There's myopia once you've been in an industry for too long. And the myopia is just like tunnel vision, and this is the way that things are, this is the way we've always done it, and this is the way we're going to do it. Problem is, this myopia is also the reason why there can be led to failure. You need someone to kind of broaden the spectrum, to add that peripheral vision to you. So adapting, dealing with change is a huge plus. Going back to the corporate culture part, that fit, if you will. How does it feel to work within your company? For your employers, what would they say about your organization? Do they like working for you? Is it easygoing? Is it come and do your job, go away? Or do they like to hang out? Are they friends with their coworkers? You don't have to be. As a manager, like to be friendly with your staff. However, when it comes to the disciplinary side, if you're too close to them, kind of makes it tough. Or it might come off that there's favored, or maybe you spend too much time with this other person. What is that fit? Is it that everyone kind of gets along, we can get along, but at the same time, when it comes down to it, if there's an issue, we're going to solve this, we're going to work together, I got to be tough on you? Or is it sometimes, and sometimes, a lot of times is a problem, people get too close, and then it's like a, hey, don't do that. On the flip side, if you have the penalty mentality, a lot of the organizations lose trust. And I call it the gotcha mentality. When we were doing the audits, I was from a completely different side of the world. Our facility was all one building, but we had a wall that separated the office management side and then the engineering and chemical side. When you crossed that wall, you were an outsider. You were stepping into someone else's turf, even though we all got together. So I'm coming in. They view me and some of the other people as, look, you don't know our industry. How the heck can you judge us? Why should we listen to you? And we don't really want to be part of this process. Just let us do our jobs. And that's fine. We all got that. So we came in with the attitude of playing off of that. We would come into one of the labs and we would say, we got you, on something. It could be like a bottle that was expiring the next month or something. And we'd be like, you are just in so much trouble. And we did that lightheartedly. And it kind of broke the ice and made people feel comfortable. And at first, when we first did that, the first couple times, they were just kind of taking it back and they kind of put up that wall. But then after we started doing that and after we kind of smiled and laughed, it was like, oh, okay, we're kind of relaxed. But just even doing that first couple of times when you saw that, you saw the people kind of stiffen up and lock up and they weren't as open with you. But once they relaxed, it was, oh, yeah, you know what, that has been a problem. We got to figure out a different inventory system. Or, yeah, we've kind of danced around these rules, these standard operating procedures. And yeah, it still gets the same result, but it may not necessarily follow the codes and the ISO standards, whatever it might be. Like, all right, well, let's pull it back to the center, and maybe this takes an extra 5 minutes, but we need to make sure that we do this because when the auditors come in and they look at this, they're going to kind of call it out. So here we are, teammate. Let's do that shift, get back to how they're supposed to be doing. Great, you thought outside the box, so you find a more efficient way, and maybe this is something that in the future ISO is going to change, or NADCAP, or whatever organization might be. But for right now, that's kind of the straight and narrow, that's kind of the road that they want. We got to stick to it. If there's transparency, everybody's always afraid of losing their job. Or every single company that I've worked with, and I love this one, there's always the rumor mill. And the rumor is, they're going to sell. They're going to sell. Someone else is going to come in, or they're going to merge. Or, especially when you have a small company and you're fighting against big organizations, or even medium-sized organizations. And you hear that, and if you don't respond, then it just kind of feeds into it. Like, oh, yeah, they're not saying anything, or I haven't heard that, but that's they're not saying it's not going to happen. So if you're transparent, if you say, hey, look, here's where we are. We're growing. Things are good. Plan on being here for a while. Thumbs up. It goes a long way. If your finances, that's one of the organizations I had. You could walk in at any point. We had monthly meetings. Here's our operating cost. Here's what we're getting in revenue. Here's what it means to you. Any questions? Everybody knew. So when you said, hey, look, we're behind, or this backlog is creating us a lot of upset customers, and now we're losing customers, or what it might be, it's not just somebody telling you that, but it's actual, here's the numbers, here's the hard facts. We're not just saying it just to work you harder or to stress you out. How can we fix this? That transparency goes a long way. Some people really, they take that information and it's mine, I'm not going to share it, and I don't want everybody else to know. And there are some things that you do have to kind of keep to yourself. But if it makes the employees more comfortable, that gives them buy-in. It gives them more of just pointing the finger and saying, get to work. They understand why. And when you're constantly open with them, when you're constantly talking to them, showing them the reasons why you're taking the steps you're going to make, they feel comfortable. Money is not always the motivator for employees. It's, do they like their job? Do they like who they work with? Do they feel safe and secure? And everyone will tell you, I need more money, or pay's a factor, or whatever it might be. But when it comes down to it, if you're happy, you're happy. If you're comfortable, then you're comfortable. Going back to adapting and change, if that person has to start thinking about, well, if I go work for this company, yeah, sure, maybe the grass is greener on the other side, but if my child gets sick, or I have some kind of emergency, or maybe I need to take out a payroll advance, are they going to do that? If I show up 5 minutes late at this organization, are they going to be pulling me in the office and giving me a hard time? Whereas maybe here it's, kind of like a, are you getting your work done? Yes. All right, you're a little bit late, but just keep getting your work done. That is more important to some people, actually most people, than that extra 50 cents an hour, or whatever it might be. So it's that corporate fit, it's that trust, it's the camaraderie within the organization. If there's accountability on both sides, when we came into that office and we pointed in, you're so screwed kind of a thing, we follow that up once we broke the ice and we talked about the issues and why they kind of need to pull it back to center. We'd be like, all right, so what can we do? So you have an inventory issue. You're jam-packed with work. We get that. Is there something in our world on the other side of that wall that we can do to help you out? Can we do we need to bring in another person just maybe specifically to do this because that department over there needs help in this area, maybe it's just paperwork. We could hire someone part-time that can kind of do both. We can kind of create a position and it's within the budget. It's putting the onus on everyone and to show that everybody's there to help each other. Every single company that I've worked with, at some point they get that grudge match. This division versus this division. Competition's good, but there's that line that sometimes it'll cross. and there'll be that like infighting or that turmoil, and that also starts all the drama and the things that kind of come along with it. When you take that approach of, you're having this issue, did something that we did, is it something we can work on together, is it something with this department? And when people start throwing other people or other departments under the bus, it's you come here, what can we do? How can we sort this out? And it sounds really simple in theory, and a lot of the times when you put people in that position, they kind of back off. It's like, oh, sorry, it's not really a thing, or whatever it might be. When I'm talking with businesses, it sounds simple. It's the first thing I tell them. Just have them talk. Sit down with them. Listen to that side. Listen to that side. Don't judge. Hear what they have to say. Make your own opinion. Take your notes. Pull them in the office. Let them share their thoughts. Then you step in. You're right and you're wrong. You're right and you're wrong. Here's what the common goods are. Here's what both of you or both your departments or individuals need to work on. Or it's just get your act together, quit being a jerk. Sometimes it's that. When that goes unchecked, that's when the bigger issues start, because then this person has a negative attitude and they complain to that person, that person, that person. This person may not care. This person is like, oh, you're my best friend. That's right. Let's make sure we don't do anything else to get them. And then that kind of propagates and propagates and propagates, and then you have an entire huge problem. So you nip that ahead of time before it even gets to that point. Mistakes are okay. There's times when you need to go out of your way. If I'm working for an organization, or I'm as a consultant or a manager or whatever it might be, where I'll just admit a mistake. It could be big, it could be small. There are so many, whether it be engineering or it could just be ground level frontline employees that are afraid to say, hey, I screwed this up, because they don't want to get in trouble. And it goes back to the punishment mentality kind of organization where there's not trust. When you have trust, people say, hey, I screwed this up. Before this happens, or before this customer calls or anything, my fault, I'm sorry, I know what I did wrong, I can fix it. The only way that you can also build that trust is by admitting your own mistakes. Say, oh, I forgot, you requested to stay off, you told me about it, I forgot to put it on the calendar, scheduled a meeting, my fault, I'll take care of it, I'll figure out how to resolve it. And then that employee or that organization I'm consulting with, they're like, oh, geez, okay, so it's safe to make a mistake. And this guy, this girl don't think that they're holier than thou art. They understand that we're all human. Small thing goes a long way. When you are hiring people, this goes back to wearing that HR hat on top of the IT hat, on top of the finance hat. Everybody has some kind of trauma or damage from the other organization. You can't just not work somewhere and not have a bad experience. It could be with a coworker, it could be with the actual employer itself. And so that's going to make them shy away or be afraid of something, whatever it might be. It could be like reporting an issue, or it could be with asking for time off, because they might have been given a hard time about that before. When you're doing that interview, try to identify it. Name a time that you were in a conflict with an employee or a customer. How did you resolve it? And it's important to listen to what their response is, but it's also important to pick up on how their body language is, how they respond to the question, like, are they really hesitant? Are they shy away? Are they kind of speak quieter because they don't want to talk about it? Or do they kind of own up to whatever it was, like, it was my mistake, and this is what happened, and here's how I resolved it, I apologize, I took the customer out to lunch, or whatever it might be. So understanding that people have damage, that have trauma, that's going to be one of their weaknesses. How can you either put that person with someone that can mentor them and make them feel comfortable and build that strength? Or how can you kind of anticipate that in the future and nip that early? Because otherwise, that issue is going to repeat itself. or it's going to carry over. Because if that person's afraid, because last company they work with, every time they got ETO, PTO, whatever you call it in your organization, that they kind of got the stern look like, oh, so you're taking a day off kind of a thing. Well, if they do that, then a new hire comes in and that person's training with that person, like they don't want to talk about ETO or they get really kind of shy or they get quiet about it, then that person's going to think, well, it's not okay to do this either. So knowing that and anticipating that there's a little bit of maybe some drama that kind of carries over, that there's, was a bad relationship in the past, that will go a long way if you can kind of counter that. Because there's been interviews that we've all had, whether it be with clients or potential employees, and they have just so many great, so many positive, you really want that person, but then there's that one thing that sticks out. If they're able to do the job, if they're able to help you make profit or make your customers or employees happy, how can you fix that one thing? Some people, it can't be changed. Like, let's be honest, we've all hired those people where you thought maybe if you mentor them or maybe if you work with this client and you coach them along, it will be better and that you can fix them. That's true sometimes, but not all the times. That comes kind of with any industry. All right. I like this part, especially when I'm talking with younger organizations, because you go into business for yourself for many different reasons. Maybe you want a legacy. Maybe it's all about profit. Maybe it's, if you're doing a nonprofit, then it's to give back to others. But everyone, well, I shouldn't say everyone, a lot of the people that I talk with and the people who form their own organization wants to be a mover and a shaker. That's fine. But balance that out. If you start to get that hubris, that ego mentality, you lose focus. Or someone else, let's just say it's another organization. I've seen it happen time and time again where they lose focus. They spend so much time shaking hands, networking and building with all these different people that they start to get this complex of like, I'm a big important person, whatever it might be, and then that trickles over to how they treat their employees, on how they work with other companies, and there's a sense of arrogance, and it also goes back into that trust. So what I usually say to that, and if it's a client, I'll tell them, like, you need to calm it down, you need to bring it down, you need to be more down to earth with people and friendly and approachable, because right now, you're not that. And I work with CEOs, presidents across the board, and honestly, outside of them actually spending time with their employees, asking them how they're doing, remembering stuff about their family or their background, and sincerely, not just for the sake of stoically asking them, if you actually care and you talk to people and you realize, I might be the president, the founder, whatever, but I can't exist without you, and that I am just as important of a cog as you are, it will help you out. And when I'm talking with those people in those scenarios, and I pick up a little bit of that arrogance, I'll ask them, who was the president in 1904? They don't know. It's the president of the United States. That's a big deal. You should know that. Well, who's the current mayor of Euclid? I don't know. These are big, important people. You're a big, important person, aren't you? So you might be maybe in your industry, you might be in your town, but outside that, nobody cares, or nobody knows. And that sounds really kind of harsh, but that's a big part of, they think about that. At first, it kind of ruffles the feathers, and it makes it like, I don't like that, that's not who I am. But then they think about it, and then the following day or the following week, it's I've been thinking about that, and you're kind of right. And there is, people do say I'm kind of unapproachable, and now I kind of understand that. And in the grand scheme of things, I am a blip, so to speak. That's not negative, and that's not to blow things off, and it doesn't mean that that person is not any less important. But they also got to realize that show, that self-righteousness trickles down and other people pick up on it. But it's good to have an ego. I mean, to some extent, you should be proud of what you've done, just within moderation. lot of these same people will give because it's a PR thing. And I'm going to touch on PR in a moment too. If you're going to give, just give. Don't give because of the fact it's going to get your name in the papers or because you're going to get some kind of shiny plaque to put on the wall. That defeats the entire purpose of corporate stewardship and giving and whatever it might be. If you want to help an organization, help them out. I mean, you don't have to do it anonymously if you want to throw your name in there, and that kind of builds morale and lets the employees know, like, hey, you're important, our community is important. That part's key, but if it's just because of the fact that you kind of want to puff your chest or kind of show the competitors up, that's the completely wrong reason to give. You want to form a foundation and just even take a step aside from it, or once you're in that spot, which we all want to grow our companies to where we're in that spot to where we can kind of take a step away and let other people run it. That's the reason why we hire people. Then maybe you focus on that foundation and giving side, or maybe you don't want to give. I mean, that's everybody's own personal thing. But don't lose focus for why you're giving, because then it's just an automatic, well, I'm just going to write a check and whatever company or whoever calls in. I've seen that too, where just any request, sign the check, and sometimes I've seen it. It might be something small, maybe it's donating some tickets to like a concert that they might have received from a partner or media specialist they went with, so they'll give these tickets away, or they'll accumulate all those things. They don't give it to employees, they'll give it out as prizes, and people kind of pick up on that, and sorry to say, they abuse it. So they know if they write in, like, here's my situation, is there anything you give us for a raffle or whatever it might be, those people will take that and they'll just use it. And it's really aggravating, because when you do it, I mean, we all do it out of trying to help others. People just kind of, there are bad people out there. I missed a slide, that's all right. So the public relations side of the world, they say, bad press is good press. As long as your name keeps getting out there, it keeps getting out there. Make sure that you kind of control your PR. If you're kind of shadowed or placed as the bad guy, then if you overdo trying to correct it, it's just going to make you look worse. Balance it out. We all make mistakes. We all have issues. Same way with companies. There's going to be that bad turn where something happens. Don't overdo it on the flip side. Don't just try to, I'm just going to start writing checks and do all this kind of stuff, and all of a sudden, where we never donated time before, we never had employees engaged in community events, now we're just going to kind of overdo it. And people see right through that. And that's another common mistake that I see when I get pulled into an organization, and they're like, here's our problem, we had a major mishap, or we've had this major problem, we have this notoriety, how do we fix it? Well, slowly. And do what you do, stick to your plan, continue what you're doing to make your name known and to be good, and then pull yourself back to being good. And on that same token, Google, for the longest time, their corporate motto was, don't be evil. That was their overall thing, help people out. Google's had controversy, but they pulled back from it. And overall, during the lifespan of ourselves or within the company, when you have that downfall, even if you've gived, helped, you stumble. And it takes time to build back up. And you got to keep doing the good that you've always tried to do. And some of you guys may not be in that position now, but a lot of you at some point are going to find yourself or one of your divisions or whatever it might be in that spot. It's not going to get fixed right away. The best thing you can do is do whatever you can to dig out of that hole and to show that you're not the company or you're not the person or whatever it might be that kind of got that reputation. So with that in mind, I'm going to kind of turn it over for questions. I do have consulting available. Again, this is completely independent of other roles that I might play, and help people from coaching CEOs, problem solving, management problems, PR problems, marketing, I've done websites of small budgets, large budgets. Did a website once that cost $60,000. I've done websites that cost $2,000. I've helped companies that have several employees. I've helped companies that have thousands of employees. I've seen, because I've worked in the science industry, the medical field, the retail, etc. I've seen a little bit of everything. There's common practices that always work across the board, standard operating procedures, both in terms of production or whatever it might be, as well as in management. And when you get stuck, reach out to someone on the outside. If you can't fix the problem and keep running into it, reach out to somebody. So I'm available if anybody wants to reach me. My consulting number is 440-836-3438, or you can reach me at my website, nvaughn@nicholasvaughn.net. Tell me your problem. Maybe I can give you a quick solution. Maybe it's a longer term issue that you need some assistance with. More than happy to assist you. That being said, I'll turn it back to the flip side of the world. Are there any questions based off what I said, or any kind of problems anybody currently is having that they kind of want to throw at me or that I can answer? I didn't put anybody to sleep quite yet, so I mean that's a plus. But.
No questions?
Okay.
You did your job too well.
Well, all right. Look, thank you again, though. I appreciate your time, and like I said, if there's anything I can do to help you in the future, let me know.